Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Melissa. Dr. Freed, do you want me just to go ahead and start?
I think so.
Okay, all right, because it is 10 o'clock on the dot, so we definitely want to be mindful of everyone's time. We're so thankful you guys have taken the time this morning to meet with us, and we will be experiencing Learning Through Lenses, our global photojournal experiences of 10 of our students, actually 6 of our students who attended study abroad with us in Northern Ireland. So we were looking at learning about culture, times of trouble, technology leadership, and we definitely did many school library visits. There were more academic libraries. So yes, the TLC just put into the chat. If you are interested in any of our online graduate programs, they are all 100% online. We have Dr. Freed is the iTech coordinator, instructional technology. I am the library media program coordinator, but we also have school counseling. We have all kinds of school leadership opportunities, including the PhD program. So we would very much like for you, if you want to reach out to anyone, we will look forward to hearing from any of you. And Melissa or Ashley, do you want to tell them about attendance? I think that's one of the things the TLC was going to let them know.
Just that as long as you attend the majority of the session today, we have allotted 2 hours. So you just have to attend like most of that 2 hours or however long the session is in order to receive your PD number, and that will be sent to you within 24 to 48 hours via email.
Right. If you registered, then you should be getting credit, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So a little bit about what we did while we were in Ireland and Northern Ireland. We spent most of our time in Belfast, and we stayed at Stranmillis University College. And that is a teacher preparation college that is tied to Queen's University in Belfast. We attended lectures from faculty at Stranmillis, and we attended a variety of schools, including Protestant schools, fully integrated schools where Protestants and Catholics and other religious or non-religious students attend together. That is one unique feature of the culture in Northern Ireland, is that divide between Protestants and Catholics, or political Protestant, political Catholic ideologies, and the idea of trying to build relationships and to build peace. And so we attended a peace building workshop and learned a bit about the troubles that happened from the late 60s through around 1998, when the Good Friday Agreement was signed. So we learned a lot about that history and how that has affected culture. We also had some fun. That was fun, visiting the schools, but we also went to Giant's Causeway, which is a really beautiful geological kind of wonder or phenomenon on the shore of the ocean. So we were at the ocean and saw some really great, beautiful sights, and saw the great beauty of Northern Ireland. And then we spent some time in Dublin as we finished our program. And this was about a 12-day program with the focus of learning about culture, learning, and technology integration, with some really awesome library visits as well. We plan to do this again in 2026. And so if you're interested, please reach out to either Dr. Shaw or me, and we can provide you with some information. And this is our group in front of Stranmillis University College. It's a very beautiful campus. it's deceiving. There is a hill you climb as you go up to the main building and our dorm rooms, but it's a really beautiful place and we really enjoyed our time there. So what is a photojournal? So this is a photojournal assignment. So students were asked to use photos as a way to reflect on their experiences, reflect on their global competency development, and reflect really on the impact or influence of the program on their teaching and their teaching practices. And so this is just a brief definition of a photojournal. It's really a creative way using photography and journaling to document experiences, thoughts, emotions with written entries and photographs. And that's what our students will be sharing with you today. So here are the objectives of the assignment. I'm not going to read these all to you, but really it's about documenting the learning journey through photos and their connection to themselves as teachers, librarians, instructional coaches. And then the reflection on the experiences and their connection to peace building skills and children. And then they're going to connect their photojournal to at least one sustainable development goal. And there are 17 of those, and you'll get a better sense of what those are as our students and participants are sharing their journals. And then, of course, they are presenting today. So how this is going to work. So each teacher, graduate student will present their photojournal. They'll have about 10 minutes to do that. There will be chances for questions at the very end, but please feel free to use the chat to engage and ask questions with us. We're really happy to answer questions. So here's the order. So Veda, Burke will go first, and then Summer, Steve, Crystal, Loveland, and Shelley. And so they will each share their screens. So there will be some time in between each presentation as we move along. So let me stop sharing.
Alice, Dr. Freed, someone had asked if we could share our slides. We're happy to do that, but it's only 8 slides. But the other presenters, if they want to share theirs, I guess that will be up to them, right? I mean, they'll be shared in this recording.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so Veda, if you want to share your screen, we will get started.
Okay.
And I'll just give a little background. Veda was our only undergraduate who attended with us, and nothing like putting her first.
Yeah.
So we were really excited. You know, we had such an age range, and it was really, I thought, fun just to see all of us interacting. So yeah, so we're letting Veda go first.
Okay, here we go. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so yes, my name is Veda Berg, and I'm an undergraduate student at UCA. I'm majoring in elementary education, and I will be a senior this upcoming year. So I'm very excited to graduate and start my teaching career. So this first picture, it was a little boy practicing his coding skills at Lockview Primary School. And it was just so interesting to see the age range that they started their coding skills. And it built on my knowledge of educational technology because I saw that any student could use technology to code. And I connected this to the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality education. Most of mine will connect to quality education because I saw that kids were excited to learn and engage with this technology. This was at St. Mary's University Library. It was their well-being collection. I just noticed that it was a perfect place for students to come and collect their thoughts. When I walked in, I just felt very at peace and comfortable. It would be a place where I would want to be to just be comfortable, happy, and healthy. And while at St. Mary's, I noticed that Northern Ireland did a very good job of setting a good example of promoting self-care. So I just think that that is very important for college-age students to have that place to come and reflect on their emotions or getting help that they would need while in class. And I connected this to the Sustainable Development Goal number 3, good health and well-being, because it is just that place where you can come and maybe get a resource for some student who's struggling with mental health, or just yourself if you were struggling with mental health. This was also at Lockview Primary School. They really valued hands-on learning. These particular students, I sat down with them for a minute and just asked them what they were doing, and they explained to me that they were creating a little pillow for their bed. It was like a little dollhouse bed. And I just thought it was so interesting to hear them talk and collaborate with each other, because they weren't fighting, they weren't arguing, they were really using their teamwork skills and collaboration skills to problem solve how they would want to build a pillow. Because if you can see in the bin, it's just scraps of fabric. There's no big pieces. And they were talking about how they could put scraps together to make a pillow. So that was really fun to see. And doing the hands-on learning, it promoted other skills than academics. It was working on those problem-solving skills and teamwork skills. This was also at Lockview Primary School. It was really inspiring to see. It's the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child. And each week, the Lockview staff would have a new assembly focusing on a new right. And one of the rights was, I don't know if I can read it, the right to go to school, or like the right to have food. And this was just real powerful to see, because some students may not know their rights because their parents may have not known their rights. And just by introducing rights to the students, they are gaining this knowledge of, I have rights and I am given rights. So that was just very nice. And then I connected this to my global competency goal of creating a classroom that values diverse and global connections, because it showed that everyone was accepted, and it gave all students a background of different backgrounds of voice in the school. So it was just a very powerful thing to see. And then this was just a welcome sign at the front of Lockview Primary School. And just by walking in, you could see that the school really showcased a diverse environment and really welcomed students of all backgrounds, all cultures. And when I went to Lockview, I was just expecting it to be a Protestant and Catholic school combined. I didn't think it was going to be a school for everyone. I was just focusing on the 2 religions. But it was really powerful to see that it welcomed everyone. So it was really doing a good job of valuing diversity. And I just felt, for me, I felt welcome. So I know students felt welcomed when they walked in. And then this was at the Ulster American Folk Park, and it was a really interesting visit. I did not expect it to be what it was. And they explained to us that in the past, these buildings would have been somewhere else, but they deconstructed them and then reconstructed them at the park. So that was really cool to hear how they just took them down brick by brick and then built them up back brick by brick. So in the past, this would have been the school building for Irish children. And visiting this park gave me a new perspective on Irish immigrants and their journey to the New World. When I was in school, we didn't really focus on the Irish immigrants' perspective. We just learned like their perspective when they were in Ireland, just how they got to Ireland, how they got to the United States, and then their new lives. We didn't learn about their old lives, just their impact on the United States. So I think by bringing these new global perspectives into the classroom, students would be able to create new perspectives and allow them to expand their knowledge on different cultures. So I think that's something very important for all students to learn about. And then we actually went inside the school building and we found this amazing employee waiting for us. He was the teacher. He was supposed to be the teacher. And he was explaining to us about so many different things. And one of my favorite was the usage of left and right bird feathers for quills. If you had a right bird feather, that would mean you're left-handed. If you had a left bird feather, that means you're right-handed. I think I switched that up. Yeah. But that was a little confusing. But he said, if you're left-handed, that's not good. You're possessed by the devil. And they were like, it would not be a good thing. And it was just so interesting to hear this culture and perspective of past Irish people and how it compares to schools today. He also explained punishments to us. And I just know that if that happened in school today, there would be so many consequences and it would just not go over well. And I connected this to the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality education, because I just know that students should be like learning about these diverse and new perspectives in school. So I think that maybe learning about a little project or something would just be so cool to hear in a classroom. And then this was at Harmony Hills. This visit was our very first school visit. It was a primary school. And they explained to us that they established this motto, "Together we flourish," during COVID. And it served as a reminder to them that together teachers can nurture children to reach their academic potential. And this was impactful for me because COVID was just so hard for everyone. And I sometimes forgot that COVID impacted the rest of the world. So seeing how they came together as a school, as administrators and as teachers to serve their children still, and it didn't it didn't bring them down, it really just brought them up. And they still were there for their students and wanting to make sure their students were learning during COVID. That was just really impactful, and I'm glad that we learned their motto. So yeah, it was inspiring to hear that. This, a part of Northern Ireland's curriculum was ICT, and it stands for Information, Communication, and Technology. And it really just talked about how students could stay safe online and navigate the internet safely. And I just found that I enjoyed learning about this because when I was in school, we talked about, like elementary school, because I'm still in school, we talked about not bullying online, like anti-cyberbullying. We never really learned about online safety. So this was just so cool to hear about because we just didn't talk about it. And I'm just glad that kids now are learning about the rules for online safety because it is such a big part of their lives today. And then this is my last slide. This is an outdoor classroom at Harmony Hills. And they were able to go out there and engage in hands-on learning, but then they could also take like a picture of what they built. They were building little beast habitats, but it looked like little bugs. I could saw their little bugs. And they were able to take a picture and then connect it to technology. So that was just cool to see how they were using hands-on learning, but also being able to take it, turn it into something technology related and present it to their classmates. So I just liked seeing how kids were still being able to be kids, but also harnessing technology to learn. So yeah, that is my photo journal.
Thanks, Veda.
Yeah.
Okay. So as Veda is taking off her screen, you can always use the chat to ask questions, and we're happy to answer those. And Summer, as you can get ready to share your screen. But thanks for going first, Veda. You did a great job, and we're so happy you were part of this group and our first undergraduate student who was willing to take the risk and go along with other grad students and teachers. So I commend you on that. All right, so Summer, whenever you're ready. And Crystal, yeah, great job. We won. We is a term that's used in a variety of ways in Northern Ireland. And so that became Veda's nickname. We won. Okay.
Okay. I am just about ready. If I can get it to pull up around. There we go. Okay, I am Summer Anderson, and I currently teach special education, so that will give you some background about my perspective on this trip. I am currently a graduate student studying library and media technology, and I teach in Fayetteville schools. Oh, I ended up including my few days in advance of joining the rest of the team because as I started reflecting when we returned, I was really glad to have some time in Dublin in advance because when we were in Northern Ireland, we learned so much about the history and how they are still under British rule. And I spent with my mom, she's down there in the corner. My mom went as a community member with the group. And that's a really great opportunity too, if you plan to go in the future, to bring along family, because we were able to really have that experience together. And Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, is free from British rule. So as we're learning about all of that in Northern Ireland and why they've chosen to still be under British rule, it was really nice for me to be able to reflect on the differences and maybe even, it was a very small glimpse, only 3 days in Dublin, but maybe even the atmosphere of it's still political, but there's almost a sense of ease where in Northern Ireland, there was an intensity about the politics there and it's all still so fresh. So as I've been back home, I've really thought about the differences between places that are so close together physically, but very different in how those countries are run. So we were able to go to St. Patrick's Cathedral. I went to Dublin initially because I had a friend there. And so it's nice to also have that personal connection and to just, I think anyone in both Ireland and in Northern Ireland know lots about the history and the politics. And so it was really nice to get kind of the two different perspectives and the difference in cultures. And then our team first went to St. Mary's Library and Stranmillis Libraries. And so we were able to look at the university libraries and see the focus at St. Mary's Library was really about the different types of students who go there and the different needs they have to study together. And they've had an influence of an architecture person on site. And so they've really built that library to meet the needs of those students. And so that was really interesting to see, to be able to look at the little spaces that they created to study and using the outdoor and nature views to really influence that atmosphere. And then we also went into Stranmillis Library and we could feel some of the frustration with funding and different things that were happening there, but it also, you could see that their focus was on supporting teachers and supporting students who teachers have resources in there, and the student teachers who come through Stranmillis, just being able to utilize those resources. So two universities, two very different structures and ways that they've been built, but how they're meeting needs in different ways. And then we were also able to learn from Dr. Noel Purdy, who is doing he's one of the professors at Strand Millis, and he's doing so much for education, and he has a lot of research that I've kind of been reading a few things here and there on, because he's got such a great body of research for poverty and education and how to better meet the students' needs. So we were able to really get a lot from him and learning from him and listening to him. And then my sustainable development goal through the United Nations is really looking into equitable education and to promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And so I was really looking at that again through that special education lens. And these were pictures from Harmony Hills, like Veda mentioned, where we are all there. We have the assistant principal who's leading us through the technology and how they really dig into their curriculum. And if you've been in education long, you know that that's part of what you do as a PLC. And they have really, I would say that I came into this thinking that, I mean, a very United States perspective, thinking that we are so advanced in our PLCs and our curriculum. And it was, I think a lot of these school visits taught me that so are other nations. These other nations are also doing great things. And so just the picture of how they're breaking down their curriculum, they have one unified curriculum for all of Northern Ireland, and how they are breaking that down within their own school and making it work for them, but that they are all following that together, which does promote equity in education. Everybody's learning the same standards. And then I included a picture of their sensory room. Again, that shows my bias there that being in special education, that's one of our focuses, is having a sensory room for our kids with special needs and behavioral needs. And the schools that we visited all had sensory rooms as well. And the equipment in this picture is very similar to what we have. And so it was good to see that, one, the need for sensory and behavioral and de-escalation isn't just an American need. It is a global need, especially since the pandemic. And so that's why I included all of those pictures. They are definitely working to meet the needs of students. And then the next one was the Mitchell House, which was a school that was specific to special needs, which is very different than at least where I teach in Fayetteville. We have all of our special needs students in an inclusive environment. We do have some that spend more time in their own classroom all day, but many of our students push in, especially for encore classes if they have a great need and disabilities, but most of our students also push into the core subjects. And this school in particular in Northern Ireland was strictly for students with special needs. So there wasn't inclusion like we have. And their playground equipment, all of the building blew me away, but their playground equipment and how accessible it was really opened my eyes to what might be missing in inclusion for us, because our special needs students tend to stay on the perimeter of the playground. They may have one area that they can get to. If we have a student in a wheelchair, then it's usually just one of the teachers pushing them around in their wheelchair, just getting fresh air. Where at Mitchell House, this is a swing that the wheelchair is wheelchair accessible, and there's a rope on the other side where the students can actually swing themselves. They roll up in their wheelchair and they get to enjoy the playground. And their classrooms were this way too, different heights of tables where students, the focus at Mitchell House is on physical disabilities. And so that's the view that we got to see, but they definitely were meeting those physical needs in so many different ways. And they still had access to science labs, and they still had, a lot of the students were saying that math was their favorite subject. And we saw students who were drawing and writing. So they were still getting the curriculum, but at the same time getting their needs met physically. And down at the bottom, this was the first I was introduced to these abilities books, and they were really great to look through, because they were all about not just the student realizing that, oh, other people are like me, but also these are great books for families and their brothers and sisters to understand how those disabilities affect them and their families. And just everything at that school really focused on how to meet those needs. Occupational, physical therapists were on site. And it's really made me reflect since, like, what are we losing by doing exclusive inclusion? And that's not to say that that's the case everywhere. I know that in the United States, we do have some schools that are devoted to special education only, but how can we find maybe a balance where we get the benefits of inclusion, but also meet everyone's needs? And then Lockview, as Veda was mentioning, this school had so much to show us. I couldn't narrow my pictures down, but you see at the top, learning through play, they had so much access to nature and to play, and the students were the ones getting to lead the learning. Their interests were what developed. They still had those standards with the curriculum, but the teachers were really good about taking those interests and focusing on those and drawing the students in. And down in this bottom left corner, it was really neat to see there was one student who had built up his little scaffolding to be able to see over the fence. And it was a really cloudy day, but he was still talking about all of the airplanes that he gets to see. And he was telling the teacher about the airplanes. And this other little boy was struggling to figure out, well, why can't I see over this fence? And nobody helped him. Nobody was like, hey, go get those blocks. He eventually just figured out, oh, he's got these 2 blocks. I can do the same thing. And he ran off to go get them. He tried one at first, still couldn't see. And it was this whole problem solving happening before your eyes. And it was just nice to see that they have the time and freedom to explore in that way before the teacher just feeds them the solution. They were able to find those things in advance. And then I have the same picture that Veda had there with the learning with the robots. The students are creating the structure, and then they're using the technology to make those robots. And they were just so excited about their learning. And that struck me because I currently teach middle school, and getting students excited about learning is hard. And these students were all so excited to be learning. The top right corner was a picture of the teacher shared that those boys had ADHD, and they were able to use some math charts as accommodations to help them solve their math problem. And she was like, give me your email address, I'll send you these, because they were, I mean, great resources. And that's the world of teaching, right? To be able to share what we have and what we know. And so that, I haven't gotten the email yet, but I'm looking forward to hearing from her and sharing resources. And then we were able to present at the end. We had some, besides Dr. Purdy, we had some really interesting presenters who were sharing. The principal from the Mitchell House at the special needs school presented her research, and we were able to hear and learn from other people. Another professor who's really digging into that poverty in education. And so my goal is to take all of the global learning that we have and bring it back to our students. And again, connect with those teachers, connect with those classrooms, and to be able to open up our worlds. I mean, mine is still being opened up just through this trip. And I've had a wealth of experiences in schools in different states, but just being able to go on a trip like this and seeing what school looks like in other places just completely opened up the world. And I want to do that for my students too. I did share a couple of other pictures that I just think contributed to our learning. Similar to Veda's with the Ulster Folk Museum, down at the bottom, he still had the sign in the education building of secular instruction. And there were certain times that they would pull that out to be, this is a time that we're learning in this way versus the divide of religious teaching versus secular. And then the Giants Causeway, the Trinity Library, I think was all the history there and the beauty of it. I included Belfast Castle, just the history of that being owned personally and then presented to the city. And then one of my favorite experiences, and I wish we'd gone back, but the Books, Paper, Scissors bookstore. I took for granted how much the owner of that bookstore told us about books and learning, and he was sharing Irish authors with us, and then he was sharing his own experiences of being in America. And I think we probably spent an hour there, and I could have spent days And we had to leave only because we were buying so much that we had to say, okay, that's enough. We can't keep buying the whole store. We have no way to bring all this back. But it was so interesting. He was telling us all the little secret places in the city that we needed to go. And he was just a wealth of knowledge. So I think all of those, besides our official programming, all of those things contributed to our learning. And then I just included Oscar Wilde is from Ireland, and to live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist. That is all. And I feel like this experience is part of truly living. And that's all I have.
That was amazing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Summer. So many people put in the chat, there's several special education teachers in this audience, which is fantastic. And I love Dr. Freed said, you know, open the world to my students. That was just a great quote from you. But yeah, I had so many experiences looking at what they're doing really well in Northern Ireland and what we could maybe take from that. So that was phenomenal. So Steve Bonds is our next presenter. He'll probably shift gears just a little bit. I think he's also up in the Fayetteville area, and I won't steal his thunder too much. But he came from an engineering lens. So I look forward to his presentation too.
Sure. Give me 1 second. I'll get going. Okay. Whoops. I need to move this up.
And he was the only guy on our trip. Let me just say, Steve just rolled with it. I
Hey,
was so impressed with him.
the nice thing about that was I got an entire floor to myself, and no, it was a great experience, I will say. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and present. Again, my name's Steve Bonds. I'm a STEM teacher at Bentonville West High School, and I'm working on my master's in instructional technology right now. In fact, I'll finish this summer at UCA with an emphasis in online teaching and learning. So I've titled this Exploring Learning, Culture, and Technology Leadership in Northern Ireland. And we focused on the global competency and sustainable development goals. And so this is my reflection. Again, I have these flags here for a reason. Obviously, Northern Ireland is part of the UK, but you also saw a lot of Irish Republic flags up there. And it was interesting to see the division among the Protestants and Catholics. You could definitely tell which type of neighborhood you were in based on the types of flags that were being flown in those neighborhoods. Obviously, Union Jacks, you saw those in the Protestant areas, along with a lot of Israeli flags. And then in the Catholic areas, you saw a lot of, obviously, Irish Republic flags with a lot of Palestinian flags. It kind of showed where their sympathies lie in the current conflict. And it was very eye-opening to see the division that still existed there, as others have expressed. So I'm going to kind of approach this from the viewpoint of the Troubles and how far they've progressed, even though there's still a lot of tension there. So Northern Ireland, Belfast in particular, was an early 20th century global industry leader. Harland and Wolff, who the shipping company that built the Titanic, they were established in 1861, and they became the most prolific builder of the ocean liners in the world. It was really fascinating whenever we went on the Titanic Belfast tour, it kind of walked through some of the history of this. But the workforce there at Harland and Wolff in the early 1900s was primarily Protestant, and Catholics that worked there were often subjected to insults, threats, and sometimes physical attacks. And because of their minority status there, this is part of what led to the protest marches in the early 60s, which eventually led to the Troubles that happened in the 60s through the 90s. And it was interesting to see that in person. So I tied this to an experiential understanding of multiple cultures, because to be there and to see it in person and to see the tension that's still there was pretty fascinating. And also United Nations Sustainable Development Goal of reducing inequalities. And so while I'm talking about that, my global competency goal for the overall program was to develop local, national, and international partnerships that provide real-world context for global learning opportunities. And my sustainability development goal was to focus on industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So just to kind of put all this in context of where I'm coming from. So my next slide, a few of us went up to Derry, where many of the major events of the Troubles took place. And this is the Bloody Sunday Memorial there in Derry, Londonderry. It depends on which side you're coming from, whether you call it Derry or Londonderry. Catholics call it Derry. Protestants primarily call it Londonderry. So the Bloody Sunday Memorial marked the events of January 30th, 1972. 14 people were killed in Bogside, which is a very interesting part of town. A lot of poverty there. It followed, the killings happened after an illegal civil rights march by the Catholics in Londonderry City. But after the violence, there was some accusations that the Ulster forces, which were Unionists, opened fire on some of the Catholic protesters, and there was reports of Catholics attacking the Ulster forces, although that's been uncorroborated. However, this event escalated violence during the Troubles, and it led to more sectarian violence, and it just kind of escalated from there. I related this to the global competency of understanding multiple cultures. Again, I think a lot of this could have been avoided had there been more communication and things like that, and also to reducing inequalities, the sustainability development goal. So the Troubles continued. These photos were taken from around Belfast. Coming from a STEM background, I was really fascinated by the robotic bomb retrieval device. It looks a lot like some of the things that my students work on using Vex robotics and things like that. The bottom left is a mural representing Bobby Sands, who died in a hunger strike in protest of how the Catholics were treated, not as war criminals, but as just common criminals in prison. And then there was also a mural there on the bottom right from the Unionist side, showing the atrocities that were carried out in the name of the IRA against Unionist forces, Ulster forces. And honestly, there are perspectives that we need to understand on both sides. So again, that's why I tied that to the goal of international conversation that promote active listening, critical thinking, and perspective recognition. One thing that people need to realize is that the Unionist population there in Northern Ireland, they were encouraged by the British to settle in Ireland, basically as garrison towns and things like that, as the British had control over Ireland. And then basically once they moved there, they were kind of abandoned by the British government, and they felt all alone in this country of Catholics. So, you know, they had their reasons for uniting together. And then obviously the IRA had their reasons for uniting together because of the minority status and the way they were treated. So it's not just a black and white issue. It's something that people need to understand the perspectives from both sides. So it's easy to take sides one way or the other, but both had very valid arguments for why they were standing their ground. So learning continues throughout the Troubles. I've also included this picture at Stranmillis, and I also have the one at Mitchell House. So Stranmillis was established in 1922 to train all educators. Dr. Purdy, as others had mentioned, gave us a nice lecture on the background of Stranmillis. Catholics opposed the institution. It was supposed to be for all educators, but Catholics opposed it because it wasn't controlled by the diocese. Mitchell House started in 1961. It was donated by a whiskey family as an institution for students with physical disabilities. So I went ahead and tied this to the global competency goal of creating a classroom environment that values diversity, and also the sustainability goal of quality education. So that's that. All right. So now that we're getting near the end of the Troubles, I lived through this and I witnessed it, on television. So President Clinton sent U.S. Senator George Mitchell to help negotiate an agreement to end the Troubles. So George Mitchell, there's a bust of him at Queen's University in Belfast. And, President Clinton, George Mitchell are highly praised in Northern Ireland for their works to end the Troubles. The Good Friday Agreement basically ended it. There was a little bit of violence after that, but he went on to become the chancellor at Queen's University from 99 to 2009. And this, I tied to the global competency goal of understanding the ways the world is interconnected. Excuse me? Okay. Because there are a lot of Irish Americans, obviously, and we had a very vested interest in ending all of this killing. And so, we sent a delegation over there to help negotiate the Good Friday Agreement. And also, obviously, it connects to health and well-being because, bombing and shooting is not good for your health, obviously. All right, so now we're moving into again, they started out very industrial. Now we're moving into a 21st century digital economy, which is where we are now. Somebody already pointed out this ICT, information, communication, and technology. So just like the rest of the world, the Western world particularly, we're moving beyond a lot of manufacturing and into information technology. And at Longview, which was the integrated primary school, I noted, there was a student there, I believe his name's Jacob. He was working on scratch coding to design video games. And just funny, all the kids at that school were a lot of fun to interact with. Coming at it from a STEM viewpoint, they were all like, "Oh, can you come play my game? I want to show this to you." And it was just a lot of fun. And I enjoyed it a whole lot. And then at the bottom right is from Harmony Hills, their computer lab, which resembles many of the ones here in the US. And it just kind of shows that we're all on the same page now in this global digital economy. And that was very eye-opening. All right, this library right here, there's a video. There you go. So this is the Maclay Library at Queen's University. To me, it appeared to be one of the most modernized in the world. They put chips inside of books, and that allows students to check them out easily, to return them easily, and then to sort them easily so they can put them back on the correct floor, correct shelves, and things like that. And so while we were there, I tried to make contact with Dr. Robert Wan. He's the customer experience manager there. And this relates directly to my primary development goal of creating national, international partnerships that provide real world context. It also correlates to the sustainability goal of industry, innovation, and infrastructure. St. Mary's Library was also very innovative. The Cardinal Newman Library. Architect Gary Murphy talked to us about the design of the library. That they used a lot of natural light. They had a lot of silent study spaces, collaborative study spaces, plenty of charging points to meet the needs of today's students that are using electronic devices. And again, contacting Gary Murphy correlated to my developing local, national, and international partnerships. And I also aligned it with sustainable cities and communities. Again, the natural light helped a lot. There were green spaces outside on roofs and things like that. So that was very, very nice to see. Teaching empathy. This was at Longview. And although they did talk a lot about the student rights, but with those rights come responsibilities. And I related this to the global competency goal of empathy and valuing multiple perspectives. And good health and well-being. They talked about think before you speak. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? So we try to teach those skills here in the US as well. But I thought that it was very nice of them to balance out the individual rights with not infringing on other people's rights. So I remember another contact I made there was the principal, Sean Spillane. He introduced me to James, who was a 10-year-old programming wizard. He walked through a lot of the games that he had designed as well, talked about HTML programming, just a very bright young man. And I know he has a very bright future. It was a lot of fun meeting these kids. Just about to wind up here. These pictures represent a new industry in Northern Ireland, which is tourism. In 2016, Titanic Belfast, an amazing museum, was awarded the world's leading tourist attraction by World Travel Awards. And somebody from my generation, if you had told me 30 years ago they would have a vibrant tourism industry in Northern Ireland, I would have told them that you're crazy because that's the last place you wanted to visit back then during the Troubles. But now it's become a destination city for many. On the bottom, I have Cypress Avenue, which music fans like myself, Van Morrison wrote a song about Cypress Avenue. And when I talked to one of my cab drivers, he said, you know, I've taken many people there because they wanted to see it. So, so they talk about integrating learning experiences for students that promote content-aligned explorations of the world and decent work and economic growth. And finally, this, although not in Northern Ireland, I included this picture from Trinity College. It was founded in 1592. This longer right here, it was built between 1712 and 1732. The pursuit of knowledge dates back hundreds of years in Ireland. It continues to evolve into the 21st century, and I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity I had to see it in person. So thank you very much, and just let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks, Steve. Congratulations on finishing up the iTech program this summer. That's quite a feat. And thanks for being on the trip. We really appreciated your insight as you chronicled the Troubles and some other cultural aspects, especially around music.
Of course, always.
Yeah. So our next presenter is Crystal McDowell, and she came in and she's taking a class, but she is not in either library media or iTech program. She is actually she reached out because she's part of an Apple Distinguished School near Chicago. And so she brought a wealth of knowledge as an instructional coach and just from a different environment, which was really, really helpful and provided us with a really rich experience from her perspectives. So Steve, if you want to stop sharing, and then Crystal will be
sure.
able to share her screen.
So apparently I didn't update my preferences to allow it, so I have to log off and log back on, or if you want to share it, you can. Either one.
Okay, let me get to the email. Oops, that's fine.
I just want to say, I'm so glad Steve got that video of the return thing, the university library. I was telling a Hendrix librarian, we had the AIM conference, like I landed on Sunday, Father's Day, and Monday I had to head to the Arkansas Association of Instructional Media conference, and Britt Ann Murphy was there, and I was telling her, and she said, oh, that sounds very expensive. But I had never seen anything like that, and I was quite amazed and fascinated.
Okay, so your presentation is loading.
Do you need the Jeopardy music?
Yeah, we might, because it's like this, you know,
If
this.
not, we can just let Summer go or Loveland go, and then I can just hop
Here we
out.
go. I got it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's working here. Getting closer. Here we go. Crystal, are you ready?
Yeah, I'll get started. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Crystal McDowell. I am probably the outlier of this group. I come from Chicago, Illinois. I actually work the next town over from Chicago, Berwyn South School District 100. We are a one-to-one Apple Distinguished School District, and we are one-to-one with iPads from kindergarten through 8th grade. I come from a predominantly Hispanic school district and a Hispanic background. So this experience was very eye-opening to me to hear about different cultures and different nationalities and getting to know people from Arkansas and to getting to know people from Ireland. So I really appreciated this experience and just really getting to talk with everyone and interact and learn new things. So we'll go ahead to the next slide. So in terms of like the technology spaces, and I tried to include different pictures from all of the school districts, not just looking at one in particular. They have the ICT, which is their technology program, and you could see when you went into the schools and the schools had a designated lab or a work area, the information was posted there for the students to see. I had shared with a couple of my classmates the middle photo here, staying safe online, cyberbullying in the DigiDuck. I just said that things in the UK are so much cooler. The words that they use, like how I called Veda Wee One, just new terms that now I'm using on my own. I just felt like they were so proper and so nice. So I was like, wow, these are fun posters. I wish we had posters like this in America with just different saying and different cartoons. So those things kind of stood out to me. Most of the classes didn't have the traditional desk settings. It was table settings with chairs and just kind of open. And what I noticed, and I was comparing from my school district to here, is that you really didn't see a lot of textbooks and a lot of stuff in the classroom. It was very simple and minimal, which was nice to see. And the photo on the right, all the way at the end, would be a modified keyboard here teaching the home row for students on a desktop computer. And in most of the classrooms, there was a variety of different Dell products. So there was laptops or desktop computers. There were some iPads in certain settings, and then at specific schools, based on the student needs, they had an iPad or another technology assistive device to help them. Next slide, please. This was technology in action. The first picture on the left-hand side was one of the preschool students, and they are just messing around with the iPad in their amazing classroom. And their classroom, it had an outdoor and an indoor area. We walked through the rain, and the kids gave us a great tour, but it was great just to see, like we were like, wow, look, it's raining. We're going to go outside. Whereas like they're like, okay, this is a beautiful day. The kids didn't care. They had their skirts on and their high socks, and they didn't have rain gear on and umbrellas. They just embraced the weather and how it was there for them. That was their norm. So it was nice to see really utilizing the indoor and the outdoor space. In the middle picture here, you have a student who is doing some coding on the code.org website, which is something that we use in our school district too. So I definitely saw the comparisons of different things that we could use in America compared to what students use in other countries. And then the last picture on the right-hand side, this was at the special needs school, and this boy was had an adaptation help assistance with his iPad, and they were doing a map activity. And what was great whenever we walked in any of these classrooms, whenever we were interacting with the students, is they were smiling, they were happy, they wanted to talk to us, they wanted to ask us questions. Some of the teachers had them do a little research on where we were from. When people heard I was from Chicago, they asked if I knew Michael Jordan or how about the Bulls. There was a kid who was really into NASCAR, and no one in our group could really help him out with the NASCAR questions, but it was really fun to see how excited they got asking us about certain things. And when my classmates shared, what parts of Arkansas they were from and how Walmart is there and Tyson Foods, then they started these tangents about different stores. And then we were laughing because we're like, oh, we got excited over this grocery store there called Marks and Spencer's, which was like a fancy Target or a fancy Walmart. So they were telling us about all the American stores and all, like Burger King. Everyone kept talking about Burger King while we were in the United Kingdom. I thought that was so strange, but apparently they like it there. So next slide. In this global competency connection, the small picture in the center, you can see I'm speaking with a student, and a couple of my classmates have already shared about the UNCRC. And I was not aware of the UNCRC and the different rights of the child. And I spent some time then after this discussion with this student talking about, what these basically rights were and what they stood for. So I asked this child when I was looking at the poster, and there's all these visuals about each of the rights. And she was talking to me about Convention 24, which is the children have the right to the best possible healthcare, clean water to drink, healthy food to eat, and a clean and safe environment to live in. And so I was trying to have this discussion, and I would say this girl was probably in 3rd or 4th grade. And trying to see, if there was ever a time where she was hungry and didn't have food. And I was thinking, to my own students in the district I work in and during the pandemic, and how we always, had to make sure that we were able to feed them and give them everything they needed during that hard time. And she said to me, she goes, well, one time I hit my lip and I wasn't able to eat food for a little bit. And I said, oh, okay. So I don't think she had the troubles, of not having food or having that hunger and coming to that school as a safe place. But it was just still a great way for her just to explain that to me and have that conversation. I really, this school really, Lockview, really stood out to me in terms of everything they had with the diversity. And you'll see throughout my presentation, a lot of the photos that really show the different parts of an integrated school. And naively thinking first coming into it, like, okay, an integrated school, that means, Protestant and Catholic, and this is what we're going to talk about. But no, it was the integration of really every type of student and the diversity. And it was really nice to see that in a school. Next slide. This kind of relates to what I was sharing here. So you could see this is all at one school. You have definitely, the welcome in all languages. And I feel that's kind of like general for most school settings now, right? Like you're trying to be diverse and add all the different languages. But they had a Buddha statue, they had a Japanese garden. In my first picture on my first slide, they had mushrooms, which they call toadstools there, I learned. So they had a lot of mushrooms in the one pond area, a lot of outdoor spaces, and then indoor spaces, just to show the different ethnicities and the different types of students and the demographics of the classrooms there. Also, I took the picture of that school was only open 30 years. So 30 years really just kind of like, that was crazy to me, right? Talking about like just technology and how it was from 1993 to 2024. And I was like, wow, this is a young school in comparison, to our schools in America. But what they've done in the community they've created in the past 30 years, they were saying basically they were busting at the seams to let students into this integrated school. And they were hoping to then open up another one. And I got to talk to the principal a little bit more about integrated schools, and he was able to share with me about how they came and they had done an interview and a podcast there to talk about their school district. And he had also shared with me about their high school district that is fully integrated, to which they start high school just a little bit younger than we do here in America. Next slide. When I was sitting in this first lecture, I could just remember my emotions were very high, listening to Dr. Purdy talk about the history and the culture of Northern Ireland and the United Kingdom. Like I shared, I was not aware. I wasn't sure what to expect in this whole program, but just really listening to him talk about the history and the culture and the words he used. He referenced his father as an orange. And again, I was like, wait. And I would like look at my classmates and like, we'd like make eye contact. I'm like, wait, what did he say? And then I would be like, can you explain that a little bit more and go into detail? So really just explaining the different terms that they use and the hardships that they went through, and how you definitely could see the diversity of people when we would get in a cab ride to go from school to school or walking on the street, or they're like, where are you from? And then, oh, well, why are you in Northern Ireland? Why are you here? Why are you visiting? So there was a lot of questions, really getting to interact with everyone and learning about the different parts of the connections. Next one. The Titanic Museum. I really wasn't sure what to expect here with the Titanic Museum, and I want to say it's kind of like glorified history based on the movie, right? And everyone kind of thinks of like Jack and Rose and the big love story. But the Titanic Museum was a great way to really open up my eyes to all the different types of people and what the city of Belfast really was back in the 1900s, you know, thinking over 100 years ago. And sometimes that's really hard for students to comprehend. And the photos here basically was how Belfast first started out at the beginning. And there was a great interactive map for the students or for anyone really just to see. It mapped out the different areas. One thing that really stood out to me in the Titanic presentation was about ropes, and Belfast was known for their ropes during that time. And, you know, I was thinking about like, wow, do we really use ropes as much as we use them, right? In the 1900s, especially with shipping and traveling. And so it really showed the different jobs and the different needs of the cities during that time and the people, and how the building of the Titanic brought thousands of people to that small area of Belfast and gave them the job opportunities. And one thing that stood out for me is the picture, the red picture at the bottom there is, you know, we talked about virtual field trips with the different things we did hands-on and going to those folklore museums and going to these experiences. We talked about like how we as Americans can really share these experiences with our students and do those virtual field trips and learn about the other countries and their viewpoints. So this picture here, it says, what a visit to the Titanic Belfast offers for students. So I thought that was a great visual. They had a great virtual program. And we did see, I believe, one group of students at that museum that day. And then they were still in school until the end of June. So there was a couple ones at the folklore museums too that we went to, which was great to see. A small group of us went to the Northern Ireland. Basically, we went to Derry or Londonderry, right? As Steve was sharing, depicted on how you say it where you come from. I wasn't really sure of the hardships and really what Derry stood for. Everyone told me when I was going to Ireland is that I needed to watch The Derry Girls, which was a show on Netflix. So I started to watch it while I was out there. And there was an interesting conversation with one of the professors at the university, and she said that she found that show very offensive, and she didn't like it how it depicted the people of Derry and, you know, where she was from and the languages and just how they were portrayed in the show. So these photos here, you know, I had also conversations with my classmates. Like, I come from an area where graffiti, right, and like wall art is like, it was bad. Now it's a thing, and people paint on walls and they depict a story, and people travel from all over the world to look at these murals. So these murals here in Derry were explained to us by someone who was actually a politician, a local politician, who gave us a walking tour of the different murals. And he talked to us about the trials and the troubles of Derry. One thing that stood out to me in this, when we were standing here, there was definitely, you could see a very predominantly poor area and what we would say probably Section 8 housing in America. And I was just watching these children, like 2 and 3 years old. They were just all hanging out in this large parking lot. They were jumping on an electrical structure. They were almost, you know, going into the street. And I looked at one of my classmates and I said, you know, this is really sad. And you could definitely see the difference in the demographics of the children in the low income area based on this area of Derry around the bog side. I wasn't sure kind of like what to expect walking into this, you know, getting off the train in Derry and seeing this giant wall in a blocked off area of a city, a huge incline of a city, lots of stairs, lots of fun hills to walk, but definitely an eye-opening experience to just to see how far the city has come in the last 50 years. You know, like, you think you hear about these trials and these troubles and it happened a long time ago. And like Steve said, he was living through this. So this was just proof right there that, you know, it's recent, right? It just happened. Like, if you think about like September 11th for kids, like for now when they're in school, that's them growing up. That was history for them. And whereas like for us as adults, we lived through it. So really kind of getting to know that information. And I think I have one more, maybe two. So this is the inquiry project-based learning. This really stood out to me because this is something we're doing in our school district and we try to do. We don't have as much green space as they do in Northern Ireland, but we try our best. So in these two photos, you have the students who are definitely doing, when touring the schools, I was trying to look at that goal 4 example of ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education to promote lifelong learning opportunities. And you definitely see those lifelong learning opportunities. And what Veda had shared in her photo and what I have in the photo on the right is of the students who are creating these like beast cages for their students. And there was only 2 iPads outside. The teacher was holding the iPad, the one teacher and the one aide, and they would take the photos, but the kids were having conversations. They were actively listening to one another. They were saying why they wanted their huts set up a certain way and what they needed. The middle picture, I believe if you tap once, it should play. It's a little video. Maybe it won't. I don't know if I muted it or not, but they are, there was a setup. And so I asked them because we were talking about the Vikings and they were the monks and they were talking about how they were practicing their play. So they had an interactive play they were doing, and you'll see in another thing, they were building volcanoes, they were doing drawings, they were doing different research on the computer. So all the different parts of a project coming together, talking about folk tales at the end of the school year. And then the students on the right, are on the left-hand side, they were doing a play activity that was the primary area of the school district. And for going to school within like the last 2 weeks of school, all the principals were like, this is a crazy time of the year. There was like fun incentives, there was different things going on, but coming from a school district where we always do site visits, it was really funny just to see another school district doing that right at the end of the school year. And everyone was just so positive and so happy and welcoming to let us in. So you didn't see that. I don't know. I can't speak to how Arkansas school districts, but I feel like the stress of our like our teachers, like the burnout towards the end of the year, and they're like, oh, summer break. Like we just, they need that relax, but you really didn't see that on anyone's faces. Everyone was always so happy. And also the principal shared at the one school that some of these teachers only work part-time, like 2 or 3 days a week. They have a great maternity leave program. So the one principal said it was very hard for her to staff her building because she might have 3 teachers that cover one section throughout that whole week. But the opportunity and the flexibility for these adults to be also, a family member, a mom, a dad, and then also work and have that happy balance. And the Giants Causeway, this is something we did in the beginning, and I almost had wished we had visited a school first, because when we went to our last school, the example like of the monk activity and the building of the volcanoes, that was for me to really understand. And so if you see on the left-hand side, the picture of the volcano is one of the students was showing me their project at the end of the year was to talk about the volcanoes and how they believe Giants Causeway was formed. And was it a folk tale? And was it about these 2 basically giants, right, that got into a fight? Or was it something that happened with volcanoes and the way that the rocks are stacked and the interactive part of that? And there was a long walk if you wanted to take a walk, or you paid £1 and you took this electric bus down and back up. So I opted to take the bus with some of my classmates instead of walking. But there were kids that were probably like 4 and 5, and they had a long rope and they were all walking up and down like, no big deal. And I was like, this is what field trips are in Northern Ireland. You are literally standing in a cliff, you're at a beach, you're at a bunch of rocks. And these kids were going, they were all smiling, they were not complaining, and they were just taking it all in. So that was great to see. Really the kids immersing themselves in talking about the folk tales and the experiences of the Causeway. So when we were at that school, they had shared how they had just gone there, and then what were their reasoning behind their designs? Why did they create the volcanoes the way they did? And really, how are they supporting their story based on what they learned about the Causeway? I think there might be one more. Oh, so personal growth. So upon leaving for Northern Ireland, I set my personal goal to grow and learn and try new experiences out of my comfort zone with new people. And, you know, here I am presenting on the left-hand side. I mean, I can present, I'm used to presenting in my job, but it was just nice to share my story and where I come from with people from the education in a different setting and really having those comparisons and talking about that. The photo in the picture was with two of the community members, and this was definitely an experience that's going to go in my journal forever. You know, after we were leaving Derry, we decided to break off into two groups, and I'm an adventure person and I just want to try new things. So we wanted to go see a Game of Thrones door that we thought was just, you know, one town away on the train, no big deal. Well, it turns out we get out of the train at the stop, and as you can see, there's nothing there besides a giant mountain. And there literally was nothing for over an hour. We couldn't get a bus, we couldn't get a taxi. We found a nice man that I started talking to at a grocery store that would be like a gas station. And he gave us a ride and hung out with us for an hour and a half, took us to see the door and brought us back to get on a train to go 2 hours back to where we were staying. So we were joking that we thought we were just going to basically stay at the city for the night because we were going to be lost, but we had a great experience. You know, I think we were definitely sore and tired the next day, and we were all happy once we finally got back on the train, headed back into the city. But I mean, I would do it again in a heartbeat if I could, because, you know, just having that personal connection and then getting to know these people from Northern Ireland, and now I'm contacts with them on social media and we're talking. And I said, you know, if you ever come to Chicago, feel free to come hang out. In the picture on the right-hand side is my first escape room. So we went to a Game of Thrones escape room. And I'm usually a planner and I need to see the answers and I need to see the visuals. So definitely that was an experience for me, to have so many bosses and professionals in the room and letting other people take charge. I'm usually the one in charge or planning. So that was a great experience for me to have. So, like I said, you know, I really enjoyed this whole journey. It was definitely eye-opening and I would recommend it to anyone. I had shared with my colleagues when we were presenting, I said, you know, this is for me, this is something I would like to do for my mom, like as a mom for my own children. I would, you know, encourage them to study abroad and really get a new lens and a new vision on life and really see what is out there in a, you know, and to have it where we could see that education setting as educators and really compare what we have in our hometowns to what is out there in this world was amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Crystal. So I have to tell on Crystal for a minute. In that escape room, she was the first one. As soon as we would start, she's like, do we need a clue? Do we need a clue? I was like, no. And so we got one clue. And then the next time she was like, come on, let's get a clue. The guy even sent back, he said, you guys are so close, you don't need one. We were like, okay, we can do this. So it was a lot of fun. So this is wonderful to remiss. I didn't say that right. I don't know. No, it is remiss, I guess. So our next speaker is Loveland Amatis. She is in the library program, and she's our first international student. So she is from the Philippines, but she teaches in Alaska, and I believe this summer she is spending some time up in Michigan. So I will let Loveland get set up and get ready to share her experiences. She's in her last semester also of the library program, and so she was our social media, she was our photo keeper, and I'm so glad she was there because I took very few photos.
Loveland.
I think your speaker might be muted. I don't know, I could be wrong. She probably put together a video because she's a great videographer.
You may have to make sure that your speaker and microphone are set up so that we can hear your video.
Technology is always great when it works.
Yeah, I'm not seeing her as being muted. You might want to leave and come back in and see if that helps.
Yeah, why don't we do that? And then while you're doing that, we'll have Shelley go. Do we want to do that? Shelley, are you ready?
Loveland may already be back in. We'll
Okay.
see. I've already seen in the chat a couple of people interested in our next trip, and I just, you know, the experience and going back through and all the different lenses everybody is sharing, it was a pretty cool experience.
All right, looks like Shelley. So Loveland will have Shelley go.
Yes.
And that gives
okay.
you a little bit of time to kind of get your speakers connected.
Okay. But
Okay.
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay,
So hopefully
perfect.
it will work. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm Shelley Polza. I'm also kind of an odd duck out. I'm not in K-12. I am brand new to the program, in my very first classes. I actually am in higher education. I'm not only a UCA graduate from decades ago, I worked at UCA in the chemistry department for 10 years, and I've now been at Hendrix College in Conway for more than 20 years. And my focus for the program overall and for the trip is I'm interested in the lifelong learner, the adult learner, the deficiencies that they encounter with technology. It was actually perfect that Loveland had difficulties because that's what I want. That's what I want to figure out, how to improve the learning potential for the adult who didn't grow up with the technology and sometimes struggles simply with the technology, not even the curriculum, so to speak. So I also have some physical limitations due to some health problems. So this trip was kind of a personal adventure for me, reaching out and seeing what I could do. So I might get emotional. So I loved St. Mary's Library. I loved the way that they had digital technologies. They actually have digital literacy skills training that's available for the students, faculty, and staff. They were very innovative in the spaces that they had. They had places to study with, they even paid attention to the texture of the walls that were very tactile. They had spaces that were open to windows, spaces that didn't have windows. They had very innovative spaces for impromptu classrooms to sit and have small lectures. And they really gave a lot of thought to the different ways that people learn, the different learning styles. And I think it really paid homage to the sustainable development goal of lifelong learning for all, because they accommodated all different types of learning. The Mitchell House School, I'm sorry, the library at Strand-Millis also had different aspects of the technology. There was hands-on things. There was this whole connection of different types of ways to learn. And I need to move. I've got something in my way here. Okay. struggling with the technology. I have something on my screen that won't go out of my way. So at both the libraries and the local schools, there was this mix of digital technology and hands-on things and books and electronic options and just not using technology just for the sake of technology, but paying attention to when it's appropriate, when it's not, and providing different ways for people to learn. I've got some vision problems as well that make it difficult for me to read books now. So digital technology is actually critical for me. So I love seeing that combination. One of the things that really stuck out to me, my daughter-in-law is a third grade teacher, and I've done outreach in local elementary and middle schools in science for years. So I've seen lots of schools, and every school we visited in Northern Ireland, it just seemed like every vertical surface was an explosion of the creativity and the individuality of the students. And I mean, all schools, I think, showcase the things that their students are doing, but it seems like it's cyclical. It's like whatever they're doing at that moment. And especially being the end of the school year, it seemed like everything they had done all year long was still out on the walls. Every hallway, every classroom, every surface was just covered. And it didn't seem too busy. It seemed like a constant celebration, celebrating their creativity and their individuality. And this whole idea from the global competency perspective of everyone is the same and everyone is different and your differences make you beautiful. It really was very powerful for me to see that. Now, the Mitchell House School, I don't have severe disabilities, but even having small disabilities makes you more aware of how people deal with them. And so this place really spoke to my heart. I really think they're doing something. I'm not a special ed teacher. I don't know the background of the reasons for being more inclusive, but I think they're doing something right in the parts where they're not inclusive, that sometimes the students, especially those that they had there with the physical needs, they needed someone to focus on their needs. And the Mitchell House School, I thought, did an excellent job of trying to meet Sustainable Development Goal number 4 and number 8 to provide education for all and also provide work for all. They had very active, very impressive to me programs to help the students find a skill that they could do that could give them a job regardless of their disabilities. They had access to science equipment and digital technology. They had programs they could do in art and design and digital skills. And there was one student in particular that struck out to me that was in a wheelchair, had some serious physical disabilities. That was an incredible artist, and they have art and design as one of the continuing education and vocational skills trainings that they can do. And I thought that was really important. I actually commented to one of the teachers there that I'm pretty sure, her name is Maya, and I'm pretty sure Maya has a future career as an illustrator if that's what she wants to do. And so her disability is not going to hold her back. She was truly impressive. I feel like it's important to understand where you come from. My global competency goal was to raise my global awareness and my awareness of current events, but the global awareness, the awareness of what other people have gone through, how people started out. Of course, I know a bit about my own ancestors and a bit about, in the US, we learn our history, but I it was really eye-opening to me for the Ulster Folk Museum to kind of think back about the challenges that people faced and kind of we exist on the successes of our ancestors. There was a ship that was one that people would have taken from Ireland to the US, and there were these bunks that were like a normal bunk size, and it was 4 people per bed. And it took me a minute to wrap my head around that. So 8 people per bunk. There would be 4 people in a single bed. And I didn't get it in this picture, but a bucket underneath where they relieved themselves out in the open. And just thinking about having challenges that were so overwhelming that you would do anything to find a better life. And that was just very powerful. I think it's important to always remember where you come from, where the people before you came from, the challenges they faced. Even if you have challenges in your life, it's usually not at that level. So I think that's really important. And this entry to one of the houses just reminded me to find beauty even in the small spaces. So I thought it was just really neat how they designed this entryway to just be beautiful, just for no practical reason, but just because. One of the things that was just probably blew my mind more than anything else was how everywhere you looked, there was this whole idea of sustainability. This whole idea of being kind to the environment. And we don't do that in the US. And oh my goodness, we can do so much better. The packaging of everything, the sandwiches, the soup, the wooden forks, spoons, and knives. I mean, since I've gotten back, I don't know how many times I've gone through a fast food place and I just look with disgust at the things now and think, man, we need to do this better. So that has really been an important thing for me that I'm going to talk a lot about. That's kind of a side note. And then I think you should be very intentional about your the way that you view the world, the appreciation of nature. There are sustainable development goals on protecting our climate, our water, our land. And I think, as you know, we have a beautiful country here. Arkansas is a beautiful state. I've spent a lot of time throughout my life out in nature, and it's something that has always been important to me. Everyone in my family knows that you do not litter when you're out with Shelley, and if you see litter, you pick it up. You know, what you bring in, you take away. You always take more than you brought because you take other people's litter as well. And so it really, I think, is important as you're out and enjoying nature. This is the Giant's Causeway and one of the coastal sites along that trip. And I think it's just important to remember that our environment is very fragile and we need to make sure that we protect it every way possible. And I think the Sustainable Development Goals 13, 14, and 15 may be the 3 most important for the future of our world. And, you know, it's also important to step out of your comfort zone. We spent our last night in Dublin. I took this picture at the Temple Bar. And it was kind of amusing because I honestly didn't even notice this like security guy. I was waiting for the traffic in front of the bar to have a break to take my picture. I didn't even notice that there was this perfectly still stationary man standing there. So that was kind of amusing. We went and had a few drinks. It's important to make new connections, step out of your comfort zone, make new friends. I had a fantastic time getting to know all these people. And I'm an oversharer, so bear with me. I also recently was divorced a few months ago. I sent this picture to my daughter-in-law, who sent a text back and said, yeah, you were just trying to take your picture of that cute guy. So, you know, I decided, be bold, don't be afraid. I went up and I told him the story. that my daughter-in-law said I just wanted a picture of the cute guy, and he said we could take a picture together. So be bold, live your life out loud, and take a risk. So I had a fantastic time, and I hope to stay connected with a lot of you guys.
Thank you so much, Shelley. You are bold. I do have to say that, not only because of the picture, but just being a part of this group and taking on the risk and doing it because you wanted to and making it work. So I definitely appreciate you, and you do inspire me, and I think you inspired everybody in the group. So I'm happy you were part of it.
Thank you.
And so our next presenter is Loveland
Yay.
Amatus. Hi, and we can hear her, so
Yes.
we should be good.
Okay, I hope this will work now, Dr. Fried and Dr.
Okay,
Shaw.
I hope so.
My apologies a while ago. Yes, let me try it. I hope it's gonna work now.
Okay.
Here we go. So good morning, everyone. My name is Loveline Amatus. I am originally from the Philippines, but I currently work and live in Alaska in a rural school in the Lower Yukon School District in Alaska. My husband and my son, they're with me. But now, since it's summer and we would love to visit our family in Michigan, so we are in Michigan. But then, just so you know, I just arrived from Denver an hour ago. So my apologies if I'm everywhere. So yes, the EASTI event was amazing, and I just came back this morning. So thank you for bearing with me. So let me start with my presentation. Dr. Shaw, Dr. Feed, initially I planned to include only 10 photos, but then I chose 10,000 photos. So I just included videos and put them together. So
Okay, I'm excited.
so these are just clips from the videos that I've taken during our program. So all the visits have impacted me in one way or another, that's for sure. I love how the teachers, the staff were very welcoming and very flexible for like all the visitors who came to their community, their buildings. And I also love the holistic approach on how students are being built up in the schools that we have visited. And I love how I've seen a lot of similarities and differences from all the visits that we did. So let me begin by so these are a few photos of the highlights, or a few of the highlights from the program. So some of the photos my group mates have shown already. This one is my favorite in the middle, wherein the student leaders walked us through the school at Lockview, and it was raining, but then it was fun and very engaging and very learned a lot. So the photo at the bottom over here was our like first selfie together with Dr. Shaw, um, Meredith, and Summer. I am under the master's degree in library media program, so that's what I'm currently taking. Now moving on. So the three major highlights of my reflection are integration of technology, modern library services, and teacher training. And all the other things that my group mates also have mentioned. Um, Thank you for mentioning them, but yes, all of those, I've learned so much, and I appreciate how much I've seen and experienced by joining this study abroad in Northern Ireland. So those were some of the highlights from our visits to St. Mary's and the Strand Millis Library. And then the next video will be the highlights from the school visits. So schools like Lockview Integrated Primary emphasize integrated education where children from different cultural, religious, and social backgrounds learn together in the same environment. And Harmony Hills Primary School fosters an environment where cultural diversity is valued and conflicts are managed in a constructive and respectful manner, contributing to a positive and inclusive school community. So let's watch this. And then before I move on to the next part of this video, so a few realizations or observations from those visits. The bulletin boards are more positive and more encouraging. Like you wouldn't see any data about test results or about those things, but more of encouragements and positivity. Also in connection to the UN SDG 4 and 16 about quality education and peace building, everything that they do is intentional. And the classrooms are set up classroom that nurture. So their goal is to have students that are well-rounded, well-rounded citizens, and the students were all very respectful, well-mannered, and the growth mindset. I remember when they had this program in the gym for this sports event, and they had to to announce the winner. The PE teacher showed a video about this athlete who failed to win in the Olympics, and then from there he talked about growth mindset. So it was amazing. I also love the school grounds. We don't have the same school grounds wherever I am teaching right now. But yes, school grounds are lovely. At Harmony Hills, we saw a group of students who were preparing to learn how to use bikes, to safely use bicycles. So it's amazing to see that they value education. One day they became archaeologists in a class, and then they found a coin in the 1200s. So something that could be found in their area as well. And very interactive way, and everything is connected, practical, and enjoyable. So I really love the fact that the student leaders were the ones who toured us around the Lockview School. And also I observed that there are more male teachers in the primary school. Primary grades, it's a little bit different from where I came from. Like male teachers are usually in the upper grade levels. And also a lot of things that I compare with how the school system or what we have in the Philippines, what we have in Alaska, and what I used to have when I worked in Kuwait in the Middle East. So it's fun. It's a lot of learning and eye-opening for me. And then the next clips or part of this video is let me just show you, and you'll see. So we went to the Dark Hedges and the Giant's Causeway. This is the group of students who were doing their field trip. And we ate fish and chips. And then this last part is in Dublin. So we did a walk tour. And that's what I have, short and sweet. That's my reflection about the program.
Thank you, Loveland. And I mentioned it in the chat, but Loveland was extremely helpful in really being the historian and showing all of the different pieces of our program by providing us with videos and photos. So we really appreciate her and the work she did on that. And so that's the end of our presentations. Are there any questions? And you can use the chat, you can speak up, you can raise your hand, and we would be happy to answer your questions. And thank you for your comments in the chat. I know a few of you have asked about the next time. And I shared this link with you about the Sustainable Development Goals. So we have this slide again. You can contact Dr. Shaw or me, and we will be happy to answer any questions about the 2026 program. At this point, it probably will be fairly similar. We may add a couple days, and we're debriefing about the experience and what we're expecting for next time. So if you please reach out to one of us, our emails are here. I think I've also included it in the chat. And then, of course, you'll receive your PD email in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll ask you to fill out an evaluation form, and from there you'll receive your certificate for PD hours. All right, thanks, Michelle and Deanna. Yes, it was a wonderful trip, and we all learned so much about the education system, about the troubles and that juxtaposition of the two. So interesting. Yeah, I'll share the link to the goals. And, compared to the US, Europe and European countries are far ahead of us in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. I think Shelley mentioned it, and all of us have mentioned different ways that at least Northern Ireland is responding to those goals. And the US is coming. We are a little far behind, but I think it is gaining some speed here too. But it's great to bring in for your students. You can integrate it, really, the Sustainable Development Goals into any curriculum. All right. Well, that is all we have. We really appreciate your attendance and your comments throughout the presentation. And thank you for being great guests and PD participants. Have a great day.